D-Day was a major turning point in the war in the European theater. It had huge effects for the war and played a major part in the eventual victory of the Allied powers. However, an operation of this caliber took massive amounts of preparation and cooperation between the United States and Britain. D-Day is to this day the largest amphibious assault ever made.
The decision of who should be the supreme commander of the operation was of immense importance. President Franklin D. Roosevelt was the man responsible for choosing who would lead the assault. The decision was initially made during a conference in Tehran in 1943 between Roosevelt, Churchill, and Stalin. During the conference, discussions took place about the Allied forces and when Stalin could expect the United States and Britain to open a second front against the Germans in the West. And during that discussion, a decision was made as who should be the supreme Allied commander. Dwight D. Eisenhower was chosen to be the supreme Allied commander and lead Operation Overlord. Eisenhower was the perfect choice for the job. He had already had 3 successful invasions during the war, all of which were joint operations with British forces. He got along well with British leaders and their forces, and maybe most importantly with General Montgomery, a British general who had already been chosen as the commander of the ground forces in Operation Overlord. All of these factors played a role in the effectiveness of Eisenhower and the successful planning of Overlord, in particular his ability and effectiveness in working with the British. While the choice of commander played a major role in the successful planning of Operation Overlord, another one of the big factors in the success of the invasion was the decision in determining where and when the operation would take place. The coast of Pas-de-Calais was the ideal location for the assault, except for the fact that it was the most obvious location, and the Germans had it heavily defended. In the end, it was decided upon that the assault would take place on the beaches of Normandy. The greatest advantages gained by choosing the beaches of Normandy as the invasion site was the element of surprise that could be achieved by attacking there. When the invasion was launched, a large majority of the German leaders and generals were on leave away from the front. General Rommel had left the front to celebrate his wife's birthday. He thought that there was no chance for the assault to take place in the next few days. In addition, a number of other German leaders and generals had left the Atlantic coast. They left to participate in military exercises designed to simulate and prepare them for an upcoming invasion. Ironically, the same invasion they were preparing for would take place during this time. Even with the German generals being gone, this operation needed excellent planning, but also precision in its execution, which was only obtained through training. Eisenhower was determined that this operation would be successful, and that the troops would be well trained and prepared for war, unlike they had been in North Africa and in other theaters. Following the events in North Africa, Eisenhower implemented a rule saying, "From now on, I am going to make it a fixed rule that no unit from the time it reaches this theater until this war is won will ever stop training." This rule was enforced, and from the time American troops reached England in 1943 until the day of the invasion, they were training for the eventual cross-channel invasion. One sergeant, Tom Plum from Canada, recorded the actual invasion. "It was identical to the beaches we had been training on in Inverness, Scotland, right down to the exact location of pillboxes." The training involved with Overlord was long and intensive. It can be argued that it played a huge role in the eventual success of the operation. Eisenhower's commitment to the continual training of the troops prepared them, as well as presented them with the eventual realities of combat and war. In looking at the planning and preparation that went into Operation Overlord, we see that there were obviously many factors that played a role in its success. The choice of Eisenhower as the commanding officer, deciding on the beaches of Normandy as the location of the assault, the massive amounts and intense training that prepared the troops for the actuality of war and the assault, all of these things clearly played a role in the success of the invasion, and were an integral part of Operation Overlord.